Yeah, see, I'll talk about that live. I don't give a shit. Like
All
that's
right, and we are live. So
Tonight's show is brought to you by Wolf Ammo.
absolutely, and I expect a kickback from that,
and
or at least a box.
and
Yeah.
gun wars everywhere.
I've actually never shot the Wolf Gold ammo, so I need to
Dude,
try
it's
that.
actually like I think I'm gonna do an actual like precision test. I'm gonna clean up one of my rifles really nice and make sure that it's all ready to go. I might buy a couple competitive ammunitions in the that are a little bit more expensive than that and stack them up because tell you what I really do like it. I've shot about 4 cases of it and over the course of like the last 6 months or so, and I really like the Wolf Gold stuff.
Well, I don't want to get too far off.
I've never had a problem with Wolf. I mean, I know a lot of people that know more about ammo than I do that tell me they do and that they don't like it, but I've never had a problem with it, so I can't personally say anything wrong. Every one of them I've ever used.
I do have a question though about that sort of stuff. Yankee, have you shot it?
I've shot it. It's comparable to Remington UMC.
So
Yeah.
what is the purple sealant on the bottom of it? I've seen.
Someone told me that
pocket.
Huh?
Hold on.
For the primer pocket.
Yeah, the primer pocket. I've seen bourbon
moisture
before.
sealant.
Huh?
It's just the type of sealant they use, different manufacturers.
Yeah.
Something special or not, but
Just a moisture.
Just
No,
like
it
sometimes
could
you'll
be
see
blue,
pink
it could
sealant
be
on the
green,
bottom of a
it could be
case.
red.
It's just a different color.
Yeah, sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's just clear or yellow.
Sometimes it's red.
Yeah, I don't
All
know.
right, real quick. Like I said, we got a lot of people in here trying to talk over each other. It's getting. But I don't want to get too far off on that. But the one thing I did want to kind of touch on, since we're talking about ammo, until recently, I didn't even realize they made brass cased ammo for 7.62 by 39. I came across some that I picked up, but I think the biggest difference that people talk about when you're talking about using brass case is the fact that the brass will expand and create a better seal in said firearm. So I don't know if that's advantageous for like performance, like cycling or
Well, of course it is.
whatever.
If you're not losing gas out of the system to help cycle the system, then you're doing better. Unless your system is overgassed.
and there's a lot of things that go on that are affected by that gas leakage. We're talking about the dirt level in your chamber. We're talking about the dirt level in the guts of your gun. Although if you're using a direct impingement gun, you're probably getting a fair amount of dirt and grime in there anyway because of all the gases bleeding back. But for instance, this is really well seen in the Tula ammo branding and loading. A lot of times, a lot of people don't realize that not all steel-cased ammo is created equal, and Tula actually skimps on their powder load. It's like a really lower grade powder, and they also skimp on it, so those cartridges are not quite as hotly loaded as the Wolf Polyformance stuff. And if
Right.
you're rifle length,
Keep in mind, Wolf uses some of Tula's ammo.
granted, but it is. There's a certain way they brand and market it that I'm not actually privy to, but they do select some of Tula's ammo for their WPA Classic line. But anyway.
Well, I've noticed that, especially with Tula. I shoot a lot of the steel Tula, and you can actually hear the difference in their powder charges.
Yeah.
Especially when you're next to someone shooting.
Let me finish my point real quick.
Sorry, I thought you were done. Sorry.
No.
Let's not forget, though, real quick, that most guns have excessive, energy. That there's energy lost in multiple different ways, and you've got to figure out a pretty complex formula to tell if that little bit of load difference makes any difference in just how well the round performs or just how much energy is lost out the end of the gun.
And that's exactly what I was going to touch on.
There he is.
What Yankee was saying is it's a complex formula, and you have to figure out whether it's your buffer weight, whether all these different things you have to figure out. But one of the things that you can pay attention to, like for instance on your Tula ammo stuff, my two longer guns that I have that have rifle length gas systems have problems shooting Tula, but I can shoot them out of a carbine length gas system all day long with no problem. I start to have some issues with mid-length gas system, but almost exclusively with a rifle length gas system because it's a longer system. It takes a lot more to pressurize it. So that's something that you have to cater to your own rifle, and you need to figure out that equation for yourself. And that's the end of my point.
All right, awkward silence.
So is he finally done with this point?
Finally, what's been like a half hour?
No, but that's a good that would be a good indication maybe if you could compare the difference between a brass and a steel and see if you're getting a significant performance difference. So
you will get a different performance rating. Now it depends on what range you're shooting at. Also, as far as accuracy is concerned, because that little bit of fluctuation in pressure is going to change the speed of your round, and that is going to influence the trajectory of that projectile.
Right. You can usually calculate you're going to lose about 150 feet per second on a steel case.
Oh wow, that's an appreciable difference. I mean that's
No, it's an appreciable difference.
Where'd you learn the word appreciable?
Depending on your range. If you're shooting at 800 meters, yeah, that's important. If you're shooting at 100 or 400,
yeah, it's meaningless.
You've been teaching Stone Guy big words.
I've got a new
Calendar, day of the word of the day calendar.
Yeah, and a thesaurus and that other book.
Please spell thesaurus.
Yeah,
it's on his phone.
Oh.
He doesn't even know what kind of dinosaur that is.
But so I kind of missed introductions. Appreciate everybody tuning in. This is Stone Guy 223, Tack Daddy After Show.
Actually, I like to think that the Tack Daddy Show is the Stone Guy pre-show.
There you go. I appreciate that.
Because you guys are lovers, but we'll move on.
Not anymore.
Nah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Real quick, from my left, we've got the Yankee Marshal.
Hello.
And then we got Joe. I think
Just
he's
popped
our
in.
Canadian.
Yeah, for now.
Just Dano.
Thanks to the link.
And then we got absolutely the Tack Daddy.
I'm here.
And we've got Mateo.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
MK74, who's yet to speak. I don't know who this is.
Hey, so
So, Shooter. SD. What's going on?
not a lot.
And we've got Mr. VSO himself.
Howdy do.
So anyway, kind of rolled into the pre-chat, or before we went on air, we were talking about ammunition and different stuff, and that's what kind of rolled into when we went live. But
I thought we were talking about the fact that Spectre was a whore. I didn't think we were talking about
Well, yeah, that was going on, but it's,
look at him. If you look like Spectre, you'd be a whore too.
What does that mean?
My girlfriend calls me a Sasquatch, but
I'm not sure what that was just weirdness. That kind of bothered me a little bit.
No, it's
depending on what part of the country you're in.
I'm creeped out now. Now I think maybe we should all just leave and give you all some alone time.
No, it's kind of like, like if you were a really hot girl, you'd be a stripper.
What?
I would. That's your life. Every hot girl becomes a stripper.
Well, it depends if they have daddy issues.
Oh god.
But to continue what we were talking about, a lot of people have talked about that manufacturer. Like they think that everything that Wolf makes is some kind of substandard stuff that they don't. They hear the name and they just say, "Oh, that's crap stuff." Well, actually, like I said, I would really like to do a test of the Wolf Gold line with some competitors. But one thing I did not know until I talked with my rep at Wolf was Wolf actually makes the practice ammo for the U.S. Olympic team. Their 22 ammo that they make, their match is actually match grade.
Wolf makes 22 ammo?
Yes, they do. It's extremely hard to find because it's well, for now anyway.
I had no idea Wolf even did a 22 ammo.
Well, I'm not gonna for now it's hard to find. For now it's hard to find. We'll see what happens.
Well, all 22 are fine right now.
Well,
right.
It sounds like Spectre's got some insider information on this that will be.
See, I keep hearing this 22's hard to find. It's been here for well over a year. Like, there's a store over in Tampa that you can buy it by the 5,000 round case. I mean, and they have it stacked waist high.
Well, it's because
Can you please put that name of that place?
It's not that it's hard to find. It's just that it's really, really expensive for what it is.
Yeah, I can find it here most any day I want to go out. I can always find some, but it's 50% more a box than it was a year ago.
Exactly, and at that point, I would rather just shoot. Like, I actually bought a 22 conversion kit some years ago for my AR-15, and I'm to the point now where I'm like, screw it. What's the point?
I'm transitioning my 16-year-old to 9mm because I'm like, shooting 22, like I've said many times before, is about as fun as fucking your pillow. So I'm transitioning him to 9mm because it's not that much more expensive to shoot it now.
I have a question. Does anybody here have experience on the Walther CCP that is recently out? Because it's supposed to have some kind of like weird recoil reduction system in it that like makes your 9mm chambering.
I only fired about a total of, I put 5 rounds in each magazine, so 10 rounds, maybe 15. Was it 3 or 2 mags? Either way, 10 or 15 rounds. I didn't notice a huge difference between it and any other similarly sized gun. But I will admit that went in, pointed off the bat because I put the safety on it, so I knew as soon as I held it I wasn't going to buy it, but just wanted to see it. So you might want to
play around with it.
I did notice that it did not have a magazine disconnect, which is something that Walter selectively puts on their guns, which pisses me off, and that's basically why I don't buy Walter guns.
It's Walter Roulette.
What?
Walther Roulette. That's how they decide what features they're going to put on a gun. They just spin a wheel and throw darts at it.
Yeah, and that's what I figured they did, but that's really, like, people say, you should try this Walter gun, it's so awesome. I'm like, oh, it has a magazine disconnect, it's automatically disqualified, you'll never see it on the channel. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, that's just like the other, the chat I did, was it a couple weeks ago, where we were talking the difference between ammo and optics, and I did some testing myself with my firearms and a control. I tested a lot of different optics and some EOTechs, a VCOG, a lot of different optics that were budget to high end, and my conclusion was that once you had that optic zero, that truly the ammunition is really the deal breaker, I guess, in the equation. Is ammo seemed to make the most difference, that had the biggest variable.
Speaking of optics, you mentioned the VCOG. I'm a huge proponent of Trijicon optics. I hate that scope so much. I will never use a VCOG. I was so disappointed when they came out with that thing. They could have done so much with it, and after the venerable ACOG, they come out with something like that, and it's just, I looked at the guy and I was just like, are you serious? This is what you're talking about?
I liked it. It wasn't that bad, I don't know.
It was the reticle, like, itself was just, it's just not up to their quality. Like, if you look at how not fine how coarse the duplex is in it, and how fuzzy the dot is, Like, it's literally they just slap something together, and I was very disappointed.
Yeah,
How much is a VCOG going for?
Too much. It's competitive to an ACOG.
I think it was 14 or 16 at my local FFL.
See, and that's ridiculous. You can buy an ACOG for that. That's absolutely ridiculous.
I would have thought a VCOG would have been cheaper from what I've heard, not just from you, but from other people, that the VCOG isn't nearly as good as the ACOG.
No, it's not. It is not as good. The only thing that you're buying is the Trigicon logo on that, which usually speaks for
You're
itself.
buying the name.
Which usually speaks for itself. Like, I've broken every single Trigicon optic I've ever owned on multiple occasions. I've broken my ACOG 3 times, and I send it back to them, and I'm like, hey, I broke this. They're like, here's your return authorization number. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Returns in 2 weeks with a invoice for $0. You know,
Well, at least they're good about their warranty.
they are, but at the same time, you come out with the VCOG and you're like, what is this? Like,
It'd
it's
be more understandable if the VCOG was like a budget option, like an entry-level optic that they put out, but for the price they're offering it doesn't sound like it at all.
in my humble opinion, the VCOG should not cost more than $400. If you compare it against their product line, if you compare it against all the stuff that they've made, it's basically like they took an AccuPoint and bastardized it and turned it into like this really crappy scope, and then slapped a $1,200, $1,400, $1,500 price tag on it.
Doesn't it go up to 6 power?
So,
Just saying that generally the scopes that run from 0 to 6, that there's just a heftier price tag. I don't know if it's the inner workings, the little elven magic that they put in there or whatever.
Rarity.
But it gets more expensive for whatever reason.
I run an ACOG on my longer range rifle. It's a fixed 4X, and I don't have a problem hitting targets out to 800 yards with it. No problem. I get the 6X thing, but
You got what, early 30s?
huh?
Early 30s or late 20s?
What are you talking about?
Your eyes.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm 28.
Yeah, that's why you don't have a problem. When you're 43 and you're looking out at 800 yards, you're like, hey, I can't see the fucking thing.
His time will come.
I suppose. I haven't had any LASIX yet, though. So if I do it right, I should be able to get LASIX twice, right? So.
Now, speaking of the that wolf thing. Sorry, I must have had a lag. I didn't mean to cut you off, but the wolf, is that a 223 or is it 556?
All their boxes say 223.
Okay. So have you ever been able to chrono any of that?
I don't have a chronograph, and suppose I should probably buy one. Because it looks like it's going that way. I should probably buy one.
Yeah, I mean, you can get some. I got mine from Midway. It was like $120, and the thing's fantastic. You know, it makes for whatever you're gonna do, it makes life easy.
If I was gonna do an ammo test like that, I would probably buy that. I'd probably buy one specifically for the ammo test, and I'd probably buy some gel too or something like that.
Yeah.
It really depends on the viewer interest. Like I'm kind of really like sometimes they release videos and I think it's going to be something cool that people are going to want to know more about, and then only 1,000 people watch it, or they're like, this is a stupid video. You only did XYZ. You only fired like 10 rounds of ammo. I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy 1,000 rounds of it if you guys don't care to see it. You know, so
Well, now that we got everybody hooked and watching on the ammo chat, you know, something I did want to talk about, and I don't remember if Tack had anything that we didn't get to in his show, but I know the Baltimore thing's kind of been beat to death, but I think it's still relevant. You know, they're enforcing a curfew now that I think is gonna jump off.
yeah, I think it's probably gonna this weekend's gonna be defining on it. But before you guys get going on that, I do have to run. I really appreciate the invite to the chat.
Absolutely.
Sorry
I expect a couple boxes of that gold in the mail. So.
Oh shit! I don't. That's the other misconception. I don't get it for free. Like people think that it's free, and it's not.
There's nothing free in this world.
No, there is nothing for free, ever. So.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you coming
out. Nice talking to you again.
Yep. Later on, guys.
Yep.
See you.
So we touched on this on Tack Daddy's show. It kind of threw up some emotion, but I agree with Tack Daddy, and I kind of want to, let's not all jump in at once, but Tack brought up the fact that, or the point, that this mother who assaulted her child on camera, everybody's familiar, I'm sure, is being...
It was called Mother of the Year?
Mother of the Year. She's being held, like she's some fucking saint because she beat the shit out of her kid on national TV, and...
People commented about that on my videos today, and I said to him, I was like, do you think this is the first time she's ever hit him, or do you think she's hit him a lot in his life? And he was still fucking there, wasn't he?
Right. Well, and that's what Tack Daddy and I felt like. I feel like it's ridiculous, one, for her, and I'm not going to judge her, but she does have, there's no father in the picture, and that's really not relevant, but it's just a fact of the situation. She has 6 kids.
Well, the father is relevant, though, Stone.
Yeah, that's
well,
what
I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? I hate to be so pessimistic.
If I can put in my 2 cents worth, I think the intention was right, but the way she executed it was wrong. Like, she didn't want her kid going out and burning down buildings and shit, but the way she did it wasn't exactly the best way to go about it.
I don't even mind the fact the way I don't mind that she went out there and smacked the shit out of her kid who was being an asshole. I got no problem with that. She didn't physically hurt him. She embarrassed him. I got no problem with that.
I agree with Yankee.
Problem with the people that are spouting up now going, see, if people would hit their kids, they'd behave. Well, for one, I don't want my fucking kids to behave if they think there's injustice in the world. I want them to be out there screaming for the right thing. And 2, she hits him all the time, I bet, and he's still there. So hitting him obviously ain't stopping him from doing what he thinks is right.
My problem with this whole thing is the fact that everybody's holding her in such high praise, and we don't know her history. We don't know, and I made the comment, and I've had time to kind of think about it, reflect on it, but I made the comment, we don't, if she would have raised him correctly, he wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, I heard that, and I took major issue the moment I heard that.
I don't know. Dude, teenagers are fucked, man. Like, you have to have like a special teenager to like actually listen to your parent. I didn't listen to my parents. I was an asshole. I don't know. I
also don't want to go for the idea that he wouldn't be there if he was doing the right thing. Someone the other day said it should never be acceptable for young kids to be throwing bottles at the police in any society. I'm like, it should be acceptable in every society if there's actual tyranny and just cause.
I saw an interview with her, and she said she would allow him to go to the funeral, and she'd allow him to do the things. But as soon as she went down there and saw him throwing bricks at the cops, that's when she was like, what the hell? That's when she lost her shit.
Well, also, it's not reasonable to expect a woman to raise a boy to become a man. She doesn't know what it means to be a man. Part of being a man is being responsible for yourself.
That 1950s bullshit. I don't go for that at all.
You don't have to go for it.
That's a bunch of crap, because my dad died when I was 8, and I'm responsible.
Yeah,
I was broken household explains a lot when you look in that culture.
Whoa, Dano.
What culture is that?
The black community. Is that
Black
what you mean?
community.
Let's not go there.
Yes, let's just we remember Dano's like our
We're
grandfather.
already there.
Dano's just like our grandfather. When he says stuff like that, we just pat him on the head and give him a
Well,
bucket.
I don't want to have that conversation where a bunch of like middle-aged black guys sit around and talk about like something that we have like we're not a part of. You know, I mean we're men. Some of us have kids, but like let's not start to sit here and talk about the black community when none of us are black and none of us know dick about it.
Wait, I'm not black?
Well,
Well,
I'm not
well,
black, but
least
I
not from
work
the
with the
waist up.
homeless every week. I do know for standing from the outside looking in, and I'll give you that. But don't tell me I don't know anything, because that's bullshit.
Well, we didn't
well,
grow
I
up
don't.
that
I
way,
don't
so
think you
our-
have to. I don't think you have to
Well,
be.
you know
black
about
to
as
be
much
able to
about
speak on-
about that as I know about gymnastics from watching the Olympics.
Okay,
Well, you don't have to be. You don't have to be black to be able to speak on.
I
the
didn't mean
exactly.
that.
community
Okay,
and
your
culture.
analogy is bullshit. Do you go to the Olympics?
I'm just staying
Hold
silent.
on, hey,
How many hours a week
one
do
at
you
a
spend at the
time.
Olympic
One at a
Games?
time.
Wait, hold on, Dano.
I was a social worker. Dano, I was a licensed social worker for years. I have my master's in psychology, and I can tell you what you're saying is bullshit.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I agree, Daniel. You do more for like you know. I commend what you do for a living. I think
I
it's
commend what
awesome.
you do. I gotta find that.
But I still don't think. I think I have. Like I had a black girlfriend. I have a black roommate. But I can't. I'm not going to sit here and say that I understand where they're coming from, being a part of their community because I'm not. I didn't grow up like that. Like I think I understand. I feel like I have an understanding, but I'm not going to claim that I know because I didn't go through that.
Well, if you thought I said I claimed I understand exactly what they feel, that's not what I'm claiming it, and
Right.
that's not what I certainly meant.
I wasn't trying to
These are
offend
things
you.
I'm getting directly from black men.
I'm just saying I'm not. I wasn't trying to offend you. Is based on what I was getting.
So,
at.
and granted, you're getting it secondhand from me, but I'm getting it firsthand.
What I'm actually taking more offense at is the fact that I'm saying that women can't teach responsibility or being an adult.
Well, it's no different than Yankee. Maybe you could teach a young girl to become a woman,
sex and
but I couldn't because I don't know what it's like to be a woman. Maybe you do.
I can tell you this: single mothers do a better job of raising their parents for the same thing as single women. And the fact that you have to resort to a slam means you got no leg to stand on. Because here's the reality of the situation.
David, you do that same shit all the time with the "show me the statistics." Everybody knows bullshit.
And saying "show me the statistics" is not calling someone a name. So if you can't see that different, I feel sorry for you. But here's the reality: when you look at single-parent homes, single mothers do, on exception, as well or better than single families, the single-parent homes where it's a father present, as far as raising children to be responsible, successful adults. And if you look at two-parent homes, if you looked at a study that wasn't done probably about 15 years ago, children that succeeded the most in life, the most successful children, the children that by the highest rate by far were people that came from homes with mothers.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you this: the comment I made about raising your children right, and I understand that kids, I've done it. I consider my parents pretty good parents that did everything in their power to teach me, good values and honesty, integrity, and all the basics of parenthood. But I still did stupid stuff. I made stupid decisions, and I understand that. But the fact of the matter is, I think as a whole in our culture, not only in the black community, but just in our culture as a whole populace, is that parents aren't taking the time with their children. They're not taking the initiative to raise their kids and teach them these things. And so I just find it hard that one action that this woman decided to do is they're putting her on a pedestal for it, and I just don't find that.
At the same time, a stone guy, it's hard to take the time when you're a single parent because you only have so much time trying to be the breadwinner and a parent.
And not only that, look what you're competing with. You're competing with his friends, all the other influences. That's a lot.
TV, video games, music, everything.
Right. Well, and I get that, but it's just I just don't like that this woman is being just like I said held regarded as some fucking hero and put on a pedestal
Well,
because
maybe
she
she's just
did what she
getting.
should have done.
Yeah,
She
well,
should have done that. She
that's
should have went down there and snatched his little ass by the back of the ear and drug him home. That's what good parents do. So I think it's ridiculous that they're.
I think the reason they're making an example of her is because there's all these other kids out there, and their parents, if they're single parents or if they're still together, they're not doing anything to prevent the children. Like they're still going
yeah,
out.
exactly. Like it's not that they're putting her up on some pedestal of Mother of the Year. Is like she was the only one out of all those kids raising hell that went down there into the mix and snatched hers out of it. Just like hell no.
Well, I kind of agree with Stone Guy, though. They are kind of promoting her as Mother of the Year in social media and in the news. Fox News was basically dedicated a whole hour to talking about how wonderful she was today.
I don't agree with that, no.
And they kind of glossed over the fact that they were glorifying the violence that she took, the violent outbreak she took against him.
Right.
Instead of glorifying the fact that at least she came down there and got him, they were glorifying the smacking your child. And
Yeah, one of the news reporters said you sure opened a can of whoop ass on him, and I'm thinking, really, that's what we want to teach our kids, that you resort to violence in that situation. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in spanking your children if the situation calls for it. I don't believe that as parents we should have our hands tied as much as they are in today's society with DFACS and CPS, and I think parents are way more timid and more gun shy to
parents don't want to take the time to actually to engage and reach their children on a mental level. They'd rather just smack the shit out of them.
Well, I see what you're saying.
There's nothing that you can't do by talking to them.
Well, to an extent, but you gotta think, man. Back in Andy Griffin days, you go break a switch off a tree and you get a whooping, so to speak, and it carried a different level of. It carried a different level of.
I say you're gonna spank your kids. Don't use a stick or anything. Just
when
I was 3 or 4 years old, we got out of line.
But the
when
fact
I was 3 or 4 years old,
okay, well, listen, that's it doesn't matter. How that was a kind of an analogy of that we can all relate to. Back in the day, you were spanked, and it meant something. It carried more weight. It sent a different message than sitting down and having a heart to heart. Obviously you could do that.
I'm going to have to
the
say
psychology of that, but
I was beat a lot as a child, a lot. I come from a Greek Orthodox family, Jewish family, and Baptist family. That's the mix of my family, and I was hit a lot. And I can tell you, the hits never did anything to curb my behavior. All they ever did was cause resentment between me and my parents or my grandparents. When I disappointed my grandparents, and I could tell, that did far more for my behavior than ever beating me did.
Right.
You guys are seeing the hits, but that kid got embarrassed, and getting embarrassed and being letting your parents down, which is what he did, and which is what it was. She wasn't hurting him. She was embarrassing the shit out of him.
No, she didn't hurt him, but she did.
I think that has a greater effect on the smack.
No, I'm saying, like, I think it's kind of sick that the media and society in general is going like, oh yeah, you beat his ass, good, that's sick, man. That's
Here,
just
Mom, you
crazy.
win a cookie.
What's that?
Here, Mom, you win a cookie.
Yeah,
well, that's right.
crazy.
It's sending the wrong message. Like I said, while I believe in being able to spank your kids, not every time, or obviously, but just letting the parents have some of the ability to make a judgment call, and not be just like we don't want to be told what to do from the government when it comes to our rights. It's kind of the same principle when it comes to parenting. I don't think the government should have any say-so in how we raise our children.
No, I disagree. I believe we as a society get to tell people if you fucking abuse your children, we're going
Well,
to.
now that's different. Obviously, if there's abuse,
Well, the
then
laws are set up to where they intervene for abuse. They don't intervene for things like a spanking. They don't intervene for things. People who say that have never worked in fucking social services.
but you got to admit nowadays it's way like I've heard.
That's hysteria. No, that's nothing like that in real. I have adopted both my children from the system. I was a licensed social worker for years. It is nothing like that inside.
Well, so you don't think that now, and I don't know. My son's only 11, so I'm
Work as
in the grand scheme of thing, I'm
you know what it's
well,
like.
yeah,
To have
well,
a
yeah, but
worker for an abuse
right,
charge.
Well,
exactly.
there it might be harder to get.
But from a parent's perspective, hold on, from a parent's perspective, it's still, or when I was coming up and I was a new parent, and you hear the stories of, or you even hear the kids, fourth graders, third graders tell their parents, well, if you spank me, I'm going to tell the school, and they're going to call child services on you, and it's like it's almost like the children are taking advantage of the fact that they can abuse the system.
If any child says that, it's not that's the problem, and that's not very likely to happen, because any social worker that's ever gone on a call with you, I'm sure, has let you know, our hands are pretty much tied unless we can show grievous bodily injury, a series of abuse, and witnessed accounts. Unless we can do that, our hands are tied. There's nothing much we can do. And this whole pretending that, oh, we heard that you spanked your kid once, so we're taking him, that's bullshit.
Well, yeah,
That's true, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. I just think that obviously we need checks and balances so that kids aren't abused. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But I also think we need to give our parents the ability to be able to punish their children without fear of repercussion from government entities that.
You do have that right, and most states even clearly define what's abuse. So, like in the state of Washington, we can smack with our hand, we can leave a mark that stays, that doesn't, as long as it's not a lasting mark that bruises or welts for longer than a certain
How are you going to define psychological abuse, Yankee?
What?
How are you going to define psychological abuse?
There's textbooks devoted to defining.
Exactly, and the reason why it's plural is
we're not talking about psychological abuse. We're talking about physical abuse right now.
Well, abuse
And
is
can I be the one to point out that
psychological abuse and physical abuse are actually two separate clinical terms and two separate things. If we want to talk about psychological abuse, sure, we can have a chat about that. But that wasn't the topic of this. It was physical
I thought
abuse.
it was abuse. I mean, because it was the
about
shame.
a woman physically hitting her child. That's what
It was the shame that got that child to stop. Not the fact.
So are you going to make the point that that is psychological abuse, that shame in any form or fashion or amount is psychological abuse?
It depends on the volume and circumstances. It's
Well,
not,
are you making that case now, or are you saying that this is a case of psychological abuse because she embarrassed him?
no.
Well, then it's not a topic. No one else is making that charge either.
Never mind.
Well, the whole thing with the CPS, I'm sure Yankees experienced this, is people are using it as a tool to get back at somebody.
Yeah, that never works. It doesn't work unless we see, like I said, grievous bodily injury, a verifiable history of abuse, or have multiple eyewitnesses. There's nothing we're going to be able to do.
Yeah, but I know, but you still have to. Someone makes a call, you still got to show up and talk to them.
No, not really. Only probably about one out of every. I don't know what the numbers are now. I can't quote them exactly, but back when I was doing it, probably about 1 out of every 3 dozen calls actually got acted upon. It's when you got that second and third call that you pretty much had to act.
Yeah, because I have seen that where the one parent calls another parent on a divorce case.
Well, that usually doesn't involve much other than CPS coming out, making a report, and offering that as evidence for the case. It never usually results in charges against anyone because the system is very aware of how that works. So.
Yeah, no, but still the royal pain.
I've gone out many, many times when I worked for CPS in Gallipolis, Ohio. I went out many, many times, filled out a little form saying I investigated the complaint of abuse. I found no physical marks on the child. The child made no representations of abuse. Blah blah blah, and just entered it into court evidence. And I'd have to say, no, most of the time there's not much I can do other than that. And there were cases where I actually kind of felt the kid probably is not being treated well, but there's limited stuff I can do.
Hey, Yankee, how many years were you a worker there? Were you, what, 4 years?
Excuse me?
How many years were you a social worker? 4 years?
Total? Between
Yeah.
all 3 states? 4 years in Portland, Oregon, 4 years in Ohio, and 2 years in Alabama.
Okay, just wondering.
All the time in Alabama was only part-time work, though, so. I worked for Willamette Bridge here in Portland for years. If anybody here is from Portland area, you know what that is, I bet. Feel free to go there and mention my name. I got fired from there, so they'll probably love hearing about me.
So how do you guys feel? I don't know if you guys have seen the interview with this mother. You know, she seems grammatically incorrect on a few things. I don't know if that speaks to her level of education or if that's just a.
Oh well, I mean, how many well-educated people have 6 children out of wedlock?
Yeah, but most people I've talked to don't use grammar correctly, so whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean,
I know what you're saying, but like, I'm sure every one of us in here is not.
And my grandmother never graduated junior high
Right. It's not like we're all not English majors, for Christ's sake. You know, obviously, but I don't know, and not that that really makes a difference, but you know, you gotta, you know, if she's gonna open herself up to this, if she's gonna accept, because to me, you know, when she put it out there, her very first interview, the very first interview was, she shared immediately, I have 6 kids, I just lost my job, it's a struggle, yada yada, almost inciting, or kind of almost like a reverse psychology in a sense, where she was asking for something without asking for something. Right, yeah, like she was more or less saying, hey, if anybody wants to help me, here's my situation, you know, which you know damn well all these places, all these news media that are giving her these interviews, that
I'll
they
bet
pay
you
her.
But Stone Guy, you don't just go up and walk on stage, get a mic clipped to you, and sit down in front of the pundits or anchors or whatever they are. You got a producer that's sitting there talking to you. There's like
Oh yeah, when she makes it that far, I'm talking about like on the street. Her first interview on the street, like they stuck a microphone in front of her, like it was immediate. Like she knew, which you know is kind of good on her if she had the forethought or the presence of mind.
I mean, if I had kids to feed, I would beg for a job.
Well, she had the presence of mind to utilize the platform that was put in front of her. She was like, oh hell, I'm about to, you know, and she's cashing in.
If anybody ever sticks a microphone in my face for live news, I don't care if it's because I witnessed a mugging. The first thing out of my mouth is going to be like, watch the Yankee Marshal on YouTube, and then I'll tell them what I saw.
I really, really doubt she's that diabolical, though. I doubt she like got $signs in her eyes and all that shit.
No, I just think it might have been a case of, hey, this is maybe a chance to, you know, tell people I need a job and I got kids to feed. So I don't fault the mother for doing that. I would, if I had to feed my kids, I'd lie, cheat, and steal. So no fault.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not faulting her by any means. I just again, I think
I'm saying it's true. I'm just saying if it was, I wouldn't fault her for it.
I think it's a little ridiculous that as a society we're jumping on the bandwagon, you know, with all these news media.
Yeah, but do any of you guys feel that the coverage of this and the Ferguson and even the riots in New Jersey and New York or whatever, do you think the coverage is being shown in an almost nefarious way to to lead you to believe, oh, look at all these crazy animals, tearing their town apart. While meanwhile, there's real protesting going on that no camera ever makes it to. It's
Yeah, but
calm.
seeing
Yeah.
peaceful protests on television doesn't get ratings, and it doesn't frighten people into surrendering their liberties to the government.
Yeah, the
Well,
shit
that's what
you
I'm
don't.
saying.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
sensational
do any of
enough.
you think that it's nefarious? Like, is this going to be a rollout for Obama to do his nationalized police force like we've heard about on more than one occasion? Is this something? Are they just using, never let a bad situation go unused, or I don't remember the quote that the dickhead used, but
He,
you don't.
he doesn't have enough time in office to even try
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly. There's not enough time. Maybe at the beginning of his second term.
Or maybe
He's just
maybe
prepping
Clinton
he's
might
prepping
do
the
it.
ground for Hillary.
Yeah, maybe Hillary Clinton will do that.
Well,
Never
she
know.
wants to create a list for anybody who uses racial slurs, so you never know.
Wait, you're shitting me, right?
No, it was covered in a video, and I also seen an article about it. She proposed if you're caught saying, racial slurs, that you go on a database.
You know what? I don't agree with people using any sort of racial slurs. I mean, we're all just people,
It
right?
does.
So
It doesn't
it doesn't
matter
make a difference.
if
It doesn't
it's
make a difference,
about
exactly.
gays, blacks. If it's a slur against somebody else, you go on a database because apparently you're not fit.
You know what? Just because I don't agree with them doesn't mean that I think that if someone uses some sort of slur, they should be put on some nationally registered shit.
I'm just
So,
telling you
Well,
what she proposed.
didn't that happen in Tack Daddy? You still there? Or is he walking the dogs? I don't
They
have my
already
camera on. So.
keep track of hate groups. So I mean, if you're a member of Ku Klux Klan or some neo-Nazi party, they're keeping track of those
Well,
like groups. But
I was hoping.
if you want to sit down and say I don't like Asian people, whatever, like they're not gonna put you on a fucking list for that because
Well, who knows, man?
No. The way it came across is it like the case in point was made for the guy who denied the gay couple. She was talking about like, boom, this guy would go on the database.
I don't.
Well, no, I don't remember.
That'd be that would be in front of the Supreme Court before you could yell some kind of racial slur.
There's a whole bunch of things that should be in front of the Supreme Court. Doesn't mean it doesn't get done.
here's the thing, though. I don't see that really happening because what purpose does the National Registry or whatever serve, or this list serve that would really benefit anyone? And it's just more tax dollars put towards spending something that's
No. You can see where that's going. You can make the claim, well, this person's done this, let's go ahead and take their Second Amendment rights away, or let's restrict their ability to fly or leave the country.
The federal PC police going to come and get us or something? Like I don't.
Well, and I don't know who, and that's why I wish Tack Daddy was here, because it was a proposed legislation that never went through. It never got traction and really went anywhere. But the fact that it was proposed, I think, set some precedent in the first place.
There's some stupid shit that gets proposed and doesn't even get off the launch pad. I mean, there's some dumb.
Well,
things
yeah, obviously,
but
but
really,
this has the what I'm about to say really had the potential and some validity to go somewhere, because it was just that. It was basically a proposal of any. It was basically like a snitch program, for lack of a better term. It was any neighbor, anybody that could, and really didn't have to have tangible proof, just basically an accusation, but it was anybody that was accused of domestic terrorism, whether it be
that's already in
to
the paperwork for that's already a thing. If you suspect somebody of being a terrorist, you call up the FBI and.
Well, that's from the Patriot Act, but that's
yeah.
But this was basically like if you're, let's say you're in your backyard and you hear your neighbor at a barbecue talking to his buddy, and he goes, "I fucking hate Hillary Clinton. I hope she never becomes president." Or whatever, that could be construed as as anti-government comment, and they could call local authorities, and they would come and investigate based on this new legislation that was proposed. which
mean,
was
Could the
absurd.
video I made yesterday telling people to burn down federal buildings, could that be construed as anti-government?
Probably.
Yeah, but you know, something like that has existed for I don't know how long. I remember once upon a time, you could call the FBI and say your neighbor was building an A bomb in his basement, and they'd come out and investigate you.
wait, how do you know about that?
So what do you
Sometimes
guys
I'm glad I don't live in this country.
what do you guys feel about this whole thing in Baltimore? I know we've kind of touched on it, you know, getting away from the mother. Just in general, the fact that a this mother, I know I just said we were going to get the mother. This whole situation has gotten more coverage, more attention than the damn incident in the first place. Like, and I don't know if that's strategic, them trying to focus on that and get our attention away from
No, I think
what's
it's
going
because
on.
it's something. I think it's because it's something new.
But Jesus, she's
It's
getting more airtime than the damn family of the man that was murdered.
It's
or
because it's something.
died.
It's because it's like it's a new something they haven't seen before. You know what I mean? Now, like, you know, like if
Yeah, it's like a pink elephant. Everybody's
There you go, yeah.
It's a new angle on the same narrative.
yeah.
Here's the thing: the riots in Baltimore probably won't work out because look at it this way: the riots in Ferguson, New York, New Jersey, none of those worked out. All the same shit happened, and nothing happened in the end. So
Well, when you say work out, what do you think these people hope for?
Well, actually,
exactly.
I don't think you can say they didn't work out, because I mean, they didn't work out to the grandest scale that everybody'd like to see them do overnight. But look at Ferguson. Look at how many people resigned or were fired from law enforcement when they were looked into and found to be completely incompetent and unable and too racially prejudiced, etc., to be in law enforcement, and were fired, sent packing. It's like 3/4 of the people that worked in law enforcement in the management division were let go.
And the government.
Yeah, exactly. So they did achieve something, and that would not have happened if there hadn't been a riot and the news and people hadn't have paid attention.
But what practical change occurred on the street that actually affects the day-to-day person that lives in Ferguson?
Well,
If your government and your police force got like canned, that's a difference on the street. That's a difference everywhere. I mean, that's across the board.
Sending a message that, hey, you're going to be held accountable now when you do shit, that is a big change.
I'm not justifying what they did. Don't get me wrong. I think what they did was wrong, and I think they could have achieved those means without burning their damn city down. But you can't sit here and tell me they didn't get anything done, because they got a shit ton of shit done. But
we probably could if we had an actual media in our country that would cover a peaceful protest, but they won't.
Well, in what you just said, Yankee, I wanted to touch on that. That's a good segue into the fact that this mayor had given whether she denies it now, but it's you know, she said it. She gave a stand down order to the chief of police for officers not to respond, to basically stand by and not to interfere with these rioters and these looters, because she was quoted as saying it's only property and it can be replaced, and I don't want to antagonize the situation and cause more death or injury to my town or whatever. And
when I first heard that, it sounded so ludicrous. I thought I heard it wrong.
No, well, the fact of the matter is, it sets a horrible precedent for the people. These looters are already punk ass motherfuckers in the first place, but now you're giving them basically free reign, carte blanche to do whatever they want to do, and they know law enforcement isn't going to do anything. Don't you think that sends the wrong message?
That's why she's the mayor, and the governor, meanwhile, called in the National Guard. It's.
But let's add one aspect to it, though. From all of us that have been in the military, every single one of us has, on a daily basis, seen orders where it says, "Stand there with rifles down, lest they attack you." Because we can rebuild that building if they tear it down, but we can't solve the problem if we start killing locals. So all of us have seen that happen in the military, time and time and time again. It's basically the same principle. Was it valid in this point? In this case, probably not.
See, I just wanted to take it one step further. I think it's done by design. You know, they want them to tear shit up and burn up buildings, because that way you're not thinking about the actual problem, the injustice of what happened to the kid that died. Where are those officers? Are they being punished? Are
If
they
there's
being
no
prosecuted?
boogeyman, you can't make people afraid of the boogeyman. You have to tell them. You have to show them he exists first.
That's what I'm saying. They're letting them run wild and say, look at this. Hey, white America, look at this. This is going to be happening on your streets.
This is why you got to give police the ability to hold people without cause and to search people without justification.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think it's all about.
Of course, we'll never use it on you. We'll just use it on those people until we decide to use it on you.
So, do you think that with...
Oh, by the way, I'm playing the part of... oh, goddamn, I blanked.
That wasn't in the
Advocate?
script. That wasn't in the script, Yankee.
No, from Green Dragon.
Tinfoil hat number 2.
No, what's... God damn it. I was just talking
Matt,
about
Matt or...
No, the head guy from Green Dragon.
Oh, Mule.
Mule, yeah, I'm playing the part of Mule Team tonight, just so everybody knows.
So now, do you think that since they called in the National Guard, but you've got kind of I don't know what the word is for that, but basically a statement from the mayor, you kind of know her stance, but then you've got the governor that's called in the National Guard, so you've got soldiers, arm in arm with local law enforcement that have kind of two different agendas, or two different orders, I should say. Do you think that's going to cause any issues, or how do you think it's going to play out as far as the actual protesters themselves?
I think it's going to tone it down.
So my only issue was I saw all the law enforcement people mingling in with the soldiers today. They dressed in very similar garb, trying to pretend like they're soldiers. They should be very separated and be doing very separate jobs.
Yeah, in Ferguson, they had the National Guard to have a separate set of duties, so there was no overlap, no intermingling, and that seemed to be a decent, at least there, a decent way of keeping them separate, but also less conflict between the two.
Plus, nobody likes hanging out with the cops. Sorry, Stone Guy.
I wonder if taking the dog for a walk is code.
That means start recording the conversation now.
Speaking of Stone Guy and asshole cops. Oh, wait, he's not here. Never mind, I'll save it. I just found out yesterday that my little brother was a police officer for just about the same amount of time I was, and quit for the same reason I did, and I didn't even know it. So we hadn't spoken to each other in almost 20 years.
What was the reason you quit?
It's complicated, but let's just say it's got to do with a lot of the problems that are surfacing and becoming very unacceptable today that were very acceptable back then. Like, let's just say back when I was in, it was okay to say the phrase, and believe me, I'm quoting this, and I don't like using euphemisms, so I'm going to use the actual words. This is a direct quote from my first day in a car with a senior officer. Let's see why that nigger's driving that nice car.
Oh, okay.
And that was very acceptable back then. And you could go to your superiors, and they'd be like, well, why was he driving that nice car? And that was not for me.
My father was law enforcement for many years, I think almost 13 or 14 years. And the reason he left was because he used to work transportation law enforcement, so he would be one of the guys that would deal with all the shit that happens at bus stations and crap.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be finding pedophiles, and what happened was his sergeant told him to wait until the pedophile abducts the child so they could get solid proof on him.
Yeah.
So he decided rather than that than to scare the living shit out of the pedophile before he got the kid.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. You should. There was problems like why I quit, but there's also the whole other side of the coin too. There's always gray area. That being a cop just is fucking hard, and you are dealing with scumbag people. Let's not try to pretend that the scumbags you deal with aren't really scumbags. We're just treating them like that because there is no shortage of scumbags on a daily basis that you will say to yourself, I can't believe people like this exist. And I have, and yet, and even more so, you have to deal with them every day.
I'm not even in law enforcement, and I have to deal with scumbags and assholes every day. I mean, there's lots of them out there. You got to be careful.
Yeah, but when you're in law enforcement, you're the one that's got to come when someone points out they're being extra scummy today.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is a very difficult job. Okay, the thing's directionless without Stone Guy. No one's got anything to talk about.
Read any good books lately?
Do they still print books?
I'm reading a great book, but I don't think anybody in here would want to read it. I don't know, maybe. But it's a thick book.
What is it?
Hold on, I'll put a link in.
Who has a clogged toilet?
That?
Who has a clogged toilet? Holy shit.
Here's a link if you're interested. It's called Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors.
Hopefully my internet doesn't lag all the fuck.
It's worth reading. Very, very, very good book.
What's it about?
Time period?
What's it about? It's about the Battle of Samar during Leyte Gulf, World War II, 1944, I think.
And where did that take place? I would assume in the Pacific, right?
Leyte Gulf, yeah, Pacific, Philippine Sea.
Okay. The Filipinos were fighting the Japanese, and they didn't exactly have the best resources at the time. So,
Well, they had us, but we got driven out of the Philippines. It's about basically, it's about the Battle of Samar, which was 13 tin can, or well, was it 3 tin can destroyers, 4 destroyer escorts, and 6 carrier escorts, which are small carriers, versus the entire I don't know. The Yamamoto is like 4 or 5 battleships, 4 heavy cruisers.
yeah, I know about the Yamamoto. It's one of the largest battleships ever made.
It was the largest battleship ever made, and basically through a stroke of bad luck, these guys ended up facing off with the entire.
Wait a minute, even larger than the Bismarck?
Yeah, it was bigger than the Bismarck.
Huh, wow.
The Bismarck was wider, the Yamamoto had bigger guns and was longer.
We had a friend of ours, his uncle was a British soldier stationed in Hong Kong in 1941, and what happened was when they were invaded by the Japanese, he was taken a prisoner of war and wasn't freed until 1945.
Yep. Well, this book is basically about the American Navy being completely caught off guard with their pants around their ankles for better lack of a better term, and these guys, it was like the Alamo of the sea. These guys had no chance of winning, but they managed to do. It's the most impossible victory I've ever seen in war history. I mean, you got the biggest gun that these ships had on it was a 5-inch gun. The biggest gun the Japanese had was an 18-inch gun that shot around. It could shoot around 20 miles. That was the size of a Volkswagen Bug.
Never heard of a gun that big.
18, yeah, the 18-inch was the biggest gun fielded in ever.
Sometimes size does matter.
Well, not in this case.
That's what she says. So what are we talking about? I left for 5 minutes and we're on World War II now.
Somebody asked what if anybody read a good book lately, and I was talking about the book I just read.
Yeah, what was the name of that book?
I put a link in. It's called Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailor.
It
All
looks
right,
good.
thanks.
Last stand of the Tin Can Sailors. I mean, shit, dude. If you want to get paid, if you want to break it down to nuts and bolts, if you want to get super patriotic and feel proud to be an American, read this book. I mean, it is amazing.
Well, it's a shame I'm not an American.
Well, if you want to be proud to be on the right side of World War II,
Yeah, well, you know what? I had friends of ours that were over in the Pacific also, so.
well,
Well, let's get back to what were we talking about? Are we done with Baltimore?
Baltimore, that's it.
I mean, are we? You think we moved on from that, or any more you guys want to go over about that situation? Or are we?
Well,
Are we
this
good?
weekend will either be the end or the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I'll stock up on beans, bullets, and band-aids.
What's all this May 1st stuff I'm hearing about? Mayday, Mayday!
You mean for the Russians?
I just like I've seen a bunch of memes, talking about, oh God, it's May 1st, and everything's gonna come crashing to a fiery death or whatever, and it's just like,
Well, that's when the Russians traditionally celebrate their military prowess, the victories in World War II, that sort of thing.
is this the same as their victories?
It's like Russia's 4th of July.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, would it really be the 4th of July? Because, wait, they kind of, well, what date did they get their independence from the Tsar of Russia?
It's more like an armistice day or something than it is.
Right. It's not the actual day, but it's the day they picked.
Okay.
Well, hell, guys, I think that's we've been running a little over an hour. We had a good conversation, stayed on topic pretty well, so that was the first. I think I'm gonna shut it down here. I appreciate everybody that was tuning in out there, everybody on the panel that came to talk and participate. Always appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
You don't appreciate it.